I want to tell you about a very interesting day. Of course, you read the Bible and it's full of interesting things, shocking things, things that people want to ban it. Oh, the Bible has sex in it. Yes, it does. It has murder, violence, of course, trickery, crime, drama, war. All of those things is true. All of those things are true. The worst of humanity you'll see in the Bible and the best of it. The judgment of God, the punishment of God on humanity, and the blessing, prosperity, deliverance, and salvation. Yes, all of that's true. So when you hear the podcast and you're expecting to hear certain things, what are you really expecting to hear? If you read the Bible, you should be willing to expect to hear everything that you read in the Bible. Sex, drugs, violence, judgment, blessing, all kinds of stuff. Thrillers, drama. But you've turned the Bible into a fairy tale. Nonetheless, I digress. I was walking, as I do in my ministry, engaging with people in real world situations. Very interesting this morning. Ran into a couple that's been married for 60 years. You know, the perfect white picket fence, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And they love the Lord, at least according to them. Who am I to dispute that? And when I was talking to them, they were uncomfortable. They love the Lord. Remember that one. When I sang a song and asked them if they know it, they said, "Oh, yes. Sing with me." "Oh, no." Wow. Yeah. When I was done with that rather odd exchange, and of course I trying to be nice about it, here's another man that walks past. Oh, I forgot to tell you, when I was talking to the couple, been married for 60 years, I thought I would tell him a parable, one of my own parables that I've written. And in this parable, I changed the names I use. And in this particular case, the object in this parable, I said, "Sir, I'm going to tell you a story." And I put my hand on his shoulders. I says, "Now, John." And he looked, he goes, "How did you know my name?" And I said, "Look in my eye." He wouldn't look. I had to say it 3 times. "Look in my eye. Look in my eye, and then you'll know how I know your name." As I'm talking, another man is walking by, and the woman is trying to catch eyes with everybody that walks by. She's not into anything that's being said. She pretends to be. And anytime she has an opportunity to distract herself from the words of God that she claims that she loves, or the song that is so wonderful to sing, "We are one in the Spirit." And then I said, "Stephen," which is my name. And the man walking by goes, "How did you know my name?" I said, "Let's talk." And then the other guy goes, "He knew my name too." I said goodbye to the couple. I was done with them. I said, "Stephen, the Lord is calling you." And he pulls out his phone, and somebody is talking. I thought he was in a conversation. He was listening to a sermon of a pastor on his phone. I said, "Stephen, let's talk about the Lord." And he was so into listening to a sermon that he was totally disengaged with a real life conversation with a man of God, a brother in the Lord. I said nothing. I just kept sharing. Eventually, he turned the volume down on what he was listening to. I said, "Why don't you walk with me? I'm going to the end of the pier." He was leaving the pier. I turned around and I said, "Walk with me, Stephen." He must have been 48, 50 years old. And we started walking and talking, sharing, and hearing different things from him. Seemed fairly okay. We got to them, as we were approaching, 2 young men walked by, and they're in their mid to late 20s. They've got beer shirts on. Yeah, party types. Dressed in black. We get to the end of the pier, The two young men are there at the end of the pier with us, only they're off to the side. And I noticed they were glancing once in a while to catch what I was saying, pretending to look at the birds. And I said, "Oh, those pigeons you're staring at. I've had an encounter with those pigeons." And they were all interested. And I told them about an exchange I had when a pigeon pooped on me while I was in the middle of talking about the Lord to people. I said, that was an embarrassing moment. I said, that happened in San Pedro. And I said, I see you're wearing beer shirts. I said, I grew up in a bar. My father owned bars and clubs. And I've never been drunk. The gentleman who was walking, Stephen, with me, was aloof, afraid, standing off. The two unbelievers were standing together, engaging, welcoming. I walked over, introduced myself, and shook both of those young men's hands. And they shook mine. While the Christian brother refused to move, didn't want to come near. I said, now look at that. He's standing off to a distance, and he's a brother in the Lord and has no compunction to come over here and introduce himself to you. I said, while you two are together. You look like you're together. He's with me, and he's not together with me. And I said, I want to tell you a story about unbelievers who look more like believers than believers do, who act more like believers than believers do, who are kinder and friendlier and more inviting, even though they are indifferent with your view, as you two young men are. I said, Yeshua had a hard time with people like this. Those who appear, they won't sing, by the way. They'll giggle and say they can't sing. They're somebody's mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. But when they could sing, because they can speak, they refuse to. I said, you guys, I can go past anyone on a party street and they'll sing, invite me in to eat, invite me in to smoke, knowing nothing about me. I said, you would be great on God's team. I said, when God gets a hold of you, you're going to make a difference. And it goes to show the difference of how those of you who claim to know the Lord and love the Lord, you are something else. So many of you are anything but someone that loves the Lord. You may love your church, and that's the word you'll mostly talk about and use, or you may love a pastor, and that's all you'll talk about. But your testimony unto God and to the unbelievers of this world is a witness, and especially when you meet another believer and you don't greet them with a holy kiss and enjoy the fellowship without knowing where they go to church, because that doesn't matter, but that they know the Lord. Interesting. Your pride. Come together, children of God, and be a witness to this world. Don't let an unbelieving drunk, which one of the guys was, speak better about God than you who are allegedly sober. Don't let an unbelieving drunk be kinder to me, more inviting to me, more willing to listen to me speak and engage in a conversation sincere with his own convictions, and he's drunk. Don't let an unbelieving drunk have a better understanding of what I'm saying than you who are sober, listening to sermons and being in church your whole life. Don't let an unbelieving drunk put you to shame when you are supposed to be the believing, sober-minded, bold sons and daughters of our God, Adonai.